To start with, first you'll want to have all the right information. Next, we'll discuss the different repayment plans so that you can make a personalized decision based on your situation. And lastly, how to revisit or change your strategy due to major life changes like getting married, having children, or a change in income. The first and most basic step is collecting your loan details. There are about 4 different places to look when gathering all the information about your debt. The first is in nslds.ed.gov, which is a database where all federal loan debt is recorded. It'll show you loans from your undergraduate and graduate careers, as well as what you've borrowed during your program here. The main loans that will be included are subsidized, unsubsidized, and Graduate Plus loans. Here you can see things like which loans you've borrowed and where, how much they were for, how much interest has accrued, and who your loan servicer is. For those of you who have borrowed the Health Profession Student Loan referred to as HPSL, ECSI is your loan servicer for that loan. You can log into ecsi.borrower.net to see what you've borrowed. Instructions for logging in were included in the loan repayment email series I sent all of you, so I recommend pulling those up as a reference. You may have also borrowed privately through a bank or another lender. If you're unsure of who you've borrowed from, it's recommended you pull a free annual credit check at annualcreditreport.com. Here you'll be able to see these debt obligations and who you need to work with for repayment. Lastly, you'll want to consider any other debt obligations you may have, like credit card debt, car loans, or the more under-the-table type agreements like money borrowed from a family member or an employer, or an agreement with a parent to pay towards their Parent Plus loan. Remembering these debts may also inform a little more of what your repayment strategy will be. I recommend pausing the presentation here and gathering this information if you don't already know it. Having this handy while we discuss some different repayment plans may help you as you're thinking about each one. Now that you have an idea of the kind of debt you're dealing with, the next step is to know more about each repayment plan. Right now, there are 9 different repayment plans to choose from. The plan you choose may be the same all the way through your repayment, or you may choose to change to another one. It's a great idea to reevaluate your strategy each and every year, or at least whenever you have a major life change, to make sure that you're still in the plan that's the best fit for you. Repayment plans fall into 2 different categories, debt-driven and income-driven. Debt-driven is more like a mortgage or a car loan where your servicer is considering how much debt you have, the amount of interest that will accrue, and splitting payments in a predictable way to pay off your debt within a certain period of time. Income-driven plans will be variable and depend solely on what your income is for that year. There are several different options within the income-driven category, which usually allows for quite a bit of flexibility depending on your situation. Because debt amounts aren't considered in this plan, it could be possible for someone with $30,000 of debt and someone with $300,000 of debt to have the exact same monthly payment if their income and some other demographic information matched exactly. Again, this is because these plans are driven by income and not by debt amounts. Even though a majority of our students choose an income-driven plan, I still want to go over the options for debt-driven plans just in case one of these suits you now or in the future. There are 4 different repayment plans within the debt-driven category: standard, graduated, and then an extended version of each of those. The standard repayment plan is going to take your debt and split it up into equal monthly payments in order to pay your debt off within 10 years. This plan typically has the highest monthly payment because it has the shortest duration so that debt can be paid off quickly. Since there's less time for interest to accrue than some of the other plans which take 20 or 25 years, you'll end up paying the least amount overall by the end of repayment on this plan. The standard plan is the default plan all students are put into if they do not choose another plan. On the right, you can get an idea of what payments would look like. Again, this will be equal monthly payments in order to see your debt paid off within 10 years. Graduated repayment is also a 10-year plan. Repayment for this plan starts low and then steps up over time. In years 1 and 2, the payments typically start out as interest only, so they're quite a bit lower, and it increases to year 10 when you'll be paying the loan off in full. Because payments start low, you end up paying more in interest over time compared to the standard plan. The thought behind this plan is that usually when starting out in one's career, you're not making as much as you would be years down the road, and in theory, the payments would match up with the growth of one's salary. This is not true for everyone's career path, but it does work for some borrowers. If considering this plan, you'll want to look at the full projected monthly payment amounts, paying close attention to what you would be paying in years 9 and 10 to see if this would be a reasonable option for you. Your loan servicer would be able to provide this information. The final type of repayment plan in the debt-driven category is extended repayment. There are 2 extended repayment plans. One is an extended version of the standard plan, and the other is the extended version of the graduated plan. The plans stay exactly the same in concept, but instead they are stretched out over 25 years. The pro to this plan is that you still have predictable monthly payments like the other two plans, but each monthly payment is more manageable. The main con is that because you're paying on your loans over a longer period of time, 25 years instead of 10, you'd end up paying much more overall by the time year 25 hits. Next, we have all the income-driven repayment plans. There are 5 different plans to consider in this category: income contingent, income-based, new income-based, pay-as-you-earn, which we refer to as pay, and revised pay-as-you-earn or repay. Each of these plans varies slightly, but generally for each, your monthly payment amount would be solely based on your income and some other demographic information that your loan servicer will collect every year. This means that each year your monthly repayment amount can vary greatly depending on your circumstances. Here's an example to give you a general idea of how your loan servicer will calculate your payments. This represents your adjusted gross income, or AGI. The AGI is your total gross income, or the amount you're actually paid, minus some specific deductions. If you have questions about what your AGI is, you can consult your employer or a tax professional. From there, they will section off a portion of your AGI as protected income. They calculate this by looking at things like the poverty line, your state of residence, and family size. The difference is known as your discretionary income. Depending on which plan you choose, your monthly repayment amount may be 10, 15, or 20% of the discretionary income. Here's a breakdown of each different income-driven repayment plan. The term direct loan is another name given to typical loans you would think of as federal loans, which would be the subsidized, unsubsidized, and Graduate Plus loans. All of the plans here are applicable if you have direct loans, and only one will work if you have FFEL loans. Many of you will not have FFEL loans since this is an older program, but to find out if you do, you can check at nslds.ed.gov or contact your loan servicer. Some of these plans are specific to when you actually borrowed loans. If you're unsure of when you borrowed, you can look in nslds.ed.gov or call your loan servicer. These 3 categories will indicate how monthly payments will be calculated. All of these payment plans will follow the same general formula that I showed you with the AGI, but some can exclude your spouse's income and debt amounts if you file separately, while the last one will include that information in your monthly payment amount regardless of how you file. Again, either 10, 15, or 20% of the discretionary income will determine your monthly payment amount. Lastly, these plans have durations of 20 or 25 years of repayment before forgiveness. This type of forgiveness is not public service loan forgiveness if you're familiar with that. We will go over both types of forgivenesses later in this presentation. Up here at the top, we have the income contingent plan. The main difference for this plan is that it takes the highest percentage of your discretionary income to calculate a monthly payment. This plan may be what you choose if a payment at 20% is doable because it will allow you to possibly pay down your debt quicker than some of the other income-driven plans. The income-based repayment plan is primarily used by students who have borrowed FFEL loans or want that mid-range monthly payment, since this plan uses 15% of the discretionary income. To be eligible for the new income-based repayment plan, you must be a new borrower who has taken out federal loans after July 1st of 2014. Unlike the last 2 plans, the years to forgiveness for this plan are only 20. We'll talk more about what forgiveness in this way means later in the presentation. Additionally, this plan and the next 2 plans we'll discuss use the lowest percentage of your discretionary income at only 10%. Pay is unique because in order to qualify for this plan, you must be able to demonstrate financial hardship. To find out if you qualify, you can contact your loan servicer who can provide more information. It's therefore possible that one year you may qualify and the next year you may not, forcing you into a different repayment plan. To be eligible for pay, you must also be a new borrower after October 1st of 2007 and borrowed a direct loan on or after October 1st of 2011. 10% of the discretionary income is used, and forgiveness can happen after 20 years. Repay is the last plan and the most commonly chosen. This is because there are pretty much no exclusions to who can qualify for this plan, and it also only uses 10% of the discretionary income to calculate a payment. Unlike pay, forgiveness wouldn't happen until after 25 years of payments, but the main difference in this plan is that regardless of filing status, your loan servicer will need both you and your spouse's income information even if you file separately. Now we're going to take a look at an example student and compare some of these repayment plans to give you a better idea of what it might look like to choose a plan. For the purposes of this example, we're going to assume that this student is single, has an AGI of $80,000, and is remaining in Ohio. Their debt is $168,667, which is what a student would have borrowed by only borrowing the maximum amount of unsubsidized loan funding during their first, second, third, and fourth years. We're just going to compare 6 of the 9 plans available. Here you can see a breakdown of what repayment could look like for each of these 6 plans. The numbers showing here were gathered by a loan simulation tool at studentaid.gov. Loan simulators like this also exist in some of the other resources I'll share at the end of this presentation. Depending on the student's goals, some of these plans will work well for them now and some will not. As we already talked about, the standard plan is usually going to have the highest monthly payment amount. This is because there's no consideration of income and it's simply debt plus interest divided out evenly over 10 years. Under this plan, your monthly payments are predictable and repayment is completed in at least half the time when compared to the other plans. Next, we have the extended standard plan, which again is the standard plan stretched out over 25 years instead of 10. You end up paying a lot more over time than the standard plan because this plan is more than double the duration of the standard plan, but payments are predictable each month and are about $800 less when compared to the standard plan. The extended graduated plan starts with that lower monthly payment amount and steps up every few years until debt is repaid. Payments for this student will start at $843 and step up to $1,638. Since this plan is also based on debt alone and the interest that will accrue, your loan servicer can provide you with a complete breakdown of what each year's monthly payment would be throughout the 25 years of repayment. If you choose this plan, I highly recommend getting this 25-year breakdown so that you know what to expect. Additionally, you'll notice that over time you end up paying more on this plan than any other plan. This is because for the first several years, payments are typically so low that interest isn't being covered, so more has accrued over time because it wasn't paid down. The first 3 plans don't have a value in the forgiveness amount category because the only plans eligible to have an amount forgiven are the income-driven repayment plans, which are the last 3 on this chart. Since we're talking about loan forgiveness now, I do want to take a quick moment to explain what that is. Loan forgiveness happens under the income-driven repayment plans when the repayment period is up. For these plans, it's either 20 or 25 years of payments depending on which plan you choose. This is not the same as public service loan forgiveness. Once you've made those payments, your loan servicer will send you information about having the rest of your debt forgiven, along with the amount that will be forgiven. You'll then take the necessary steps with your loan servicer to have the remainder forgiven. If you have questions about how many more payments you have until forgiveness or want an estimate of what you could have forgiven, your loan servicer will be able to provide that information to you. Currently, the amount that's forgiven is considered taxable, meaning whatever amount is forgiven will be added to your income for that calendar year and you would be taxed on it. I highly recommend working with a tax professional before forgiveness and the year forgiveness takes place. This will help you understand what kind of financial implications this could have for you. Many graduates will start saving early for an event like this since they could end up owing a pretty big sum the year of their forgiveness. Again, a tax professional can help you know what to prepare for. Moving on to the income-driven repayment plans, the first one we have here is the income contingent repayment plan. Income contingent uses 20% of the discretionary income, which is why you'll notice payments are higher than the other 2. Because you're paying down debt at a higher rate, the student can actually pay off their loans in under 25 years and doesn't need an amount to be forgiven. If your income can support a higher monthly payment and you don't plan on utilizing forgiveness, this might be the plan that you consider. This section for last monthly payment is accurate for the debt-driven plans, which can be predicted, but more of an estimate for the income-driven ones. This section exists to show an estimated amount of what someone's last monthly payment could look like if they receive a raise every year and maintain the same job for 20 to 25 years. Remember, since this is based on income and the income can go up and down depending on your job, the last monthly payment of an income-driven repayment plan will be based on all the same things that your first monthly payment was: AGI, the state you live in, and household size information. The last two plans, Pay and Repay, both use 10% of your discretionary income, so the first monthly payments are going to be exactly the same. The last monthly payment is showing as a different amount because Pay is 20 years and Repay is 25 years. Again, the last monthly payments are just estimates, assuming yearly raises occur. You can see that at the end of both plans, there's a high amount eligible to be forgiven. This is the amount we were discussing earlier that could be added to your taxable income. Under the Pay plan, if this student was still making $80,000 in 2040, they would be taxed on an income of $233,937. Once you've weighed your options and decided on a loan repayment plan, you'll need to work with your loan servicer in order to apply for it. The first step is determining when your loans will go into repayment. If you're unsure of this date, your loan servicer can provide it, but generally, federal loans have a grace period of 6 months between when you graduate and when you enter repayment. The only exception to this is if you've already used a grace period during a previous program. This usually happens if a student takes off time between degrees or if you've gone on a leave of absence. If you fall into this category and have already used the 6-month grace period, you may only have about a month to make your first payment after graduating. Again, your loan servicer can let you know if this is the case for you. Next, you'll want to apply for your repayment plan about 30 to 60 days before the date when your loans are going to enter repayment. If you've used your grace period already and are concerned about applying for a repayment plan, please make sure you contact your loan servicer and let them know. The application can be completed with your loan servicer or at studentaid.gov. Applying either way should work to get you into the plan that you want. Your loan servicer will collect information like your taxes, date of residence, and household size in order to calculate a monthly payment amount. For those of you graduating this year, they'll be collecting 2019 tax information, which might mean a low monthly payment for your first year of repayment if you had little to no income in 2019. You most likely won't have to provide this income information if you choose to use a debt-driven repayment plan. After you've applied and your loan servicer processes your application, they'll send you a confirmation. At that time, you will want to confirm your monthly payment amount and the logistics of making a payment. If you fail to enroll in a repayment plan, your loan servicer is going to automatically enroll you into the standard plan. Remember, this plan typically has the highest monthly payment amount, so it's very important to apply for a plan on time to avoid the standard plan. If enrolled in the standard plan, you will have to make at least one monthly payment before you're able to apply for a different plan. If your goal is to continue making payments on an income-driven repayment plan, you'll need to take action every year in order to remain on it. This process is called recertification and usually needs done before the anniversary of when you first applied for your repayment plan the year before. Your loan servicer will give you your recertification date, and it'll be your responsibility to put that in your calendar and recertify on time. As a part of recertification, your loan servicer will request documentation from you to recalculate your monthly repayment and allow you to remain on your chosen income-driven repayment plan. The Department of Education tells us that less than half of all borrowers remember to do this every year, so it's very important that you set a yearly reminder the same way that you would set one for a birthday or another important event. Similarly to failing to apply for a repayment plan, failure to recertify will automatically enroll you into the standard plan. You will also have to make one monthly payment on the standard plan before being able to recertify. Some of you may be interested in public service loan forgiveness. This program allows borrowers who work with certain qualifying employers to have their remaining loan amounts forgiven after 120 payments, which is 10 years. The basic formula to qualify is for eligible loans plus 120 payments plus a qualifying employer gets you considered for public service loan forgiveness. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on public service loan forgiveness since many of you will not pursue it, but if you're considering this plan or have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call. One thing I did want to point out is that unlike the other type of loan forgiveness, public service loan forgiveness is a non-taxable event, meaning the amount forgiven would not be taxed as a part of your income that year. Interest capitalization happens when unpaid interest is added to the principal amount of your student loan. This increases the outstanding principal amount due on the loan because interest is then charged on a new higher loan principal amount, increasing the overall cost of the loan. Capitalization primarily happens when you enter repayment, if you choose to consolidate your loans, if you fail to recertify your loan, and when you switch repayment plans. This is why it's best to only switch repayment plans when you've considered this cost and decided that a different plan will be better for you and your goals in the long run. To talk through the specifics of capitalization and how that can impact your loan amounts, please work with your loan servicer. Many of you may have borrowed some of your loan funding through the Health Professions Student Loan or HPSL. HPSL is technically a federal loan, but it's serviced through ECSI. This means that it would not be included in your repayment plan as a part of repayment, as HPSL would be done through ECSI. The only exception to this is if you choose to consolidate your loans to have HPSL included with your federal loans. HPSL is the only loan that can be consolidated. Private loans would not qualify to be consolidated with your federal loans and will need to remain separate. Before deciding to consolidate, there are several things that you'll need to consider. The benefits of consolidation include having one loan servicer and one payment instead of two, being able to include your HPSL amount in the amount that could be forgiven through programs like Public Service Loan Forgiveness or the General Loan Forgiveness, and during the consolidation process, you can select a new loan servicer. The cons are, as soon as you consolidate, you end up losing out on the 12-month grace period given to HPSL. During that grace period, there's no interest accruing on your HPSL amount, but if consolidated, you will start accruing interest on it immediately. Additionally, as a part of combining all your loans into one loan, your loan servicer will apply a new interest rate to your loans, which will be the average interest rate of all your loans rounded up to the nearest 0.125%. In the long run, this means that interest will accrue at a higher rate. Lastly, per the information on the capitalization slide, the interest on your loans will capitalize. It will be up to you to consider these factors when determining whether or not you want to consolidate. I also wanted to make the distinction that this is not the same as refinancing. If you haven't already started getting this, you'll soon start getting private lenders offering to refinance your loans. Refinancing is similar to consolidation in that your loans will get combined into one new loan under a new loan servicer. Students usually choose to refinance because they're offered a lower interest rate. However, there are many things you can lose out on by leaving the federal repayment program. Some of these things include losing out on flexible repayment, public service loan forgiveness, general loan forgiveness, options if you become disabled, and other federal offerings. If you're considering refinancing, I highly recommend talking to a financial planner before doing so. Lastly, I wanted to talk about prepayment. Unlike many other debt obligations, such as most mortgages, there's no penalty for repaying your federal loans quickly. Bonuses, gift money received for holidays or birthdays, windfalls, and other extra income you have can all be put toward paying your loans down sooner. If the monthly payment amount is less than what you've budgeted, you can even put more towards your loans each month. If you plan to pay more than what your monthly payment amount technically is, please be sure to contact your loan servicer to let them know if there's anything else you need to do in order to ensure payments are properly being applied to your account. Listed here are some resources you can take advantage of now and after you've graduated. As mentioned many times in this presentation, your loan servicer is going to be your primary contact because they are the ones who actually hold your loans, apply payments, and can see what needs to be done and when. Again, if you don't know who your loan servicer is, you can log into nslds.ed.gov to find out more information. Studentaid.gov is the Department of Education's website for all things financial aid related. There you can find forms for applying for repayment plans, consolidating loans, applying for PSLF, and more. They also have loan simulators and lots of different articles explaining terminology if you're ever confused by something. The Veterinary Information Network, or VIN, is a great resource as it's geared specifically to veterinary students and graduates. Their website has a student debt center which houses lots of helpful information about repayment, as well as a loan simulator, which can help you weigh different loan repayment options. As a part of the loan simulator, you can even download your data from the Federal Student Aid site to get a more accurate simulation. Instructions on how to do that can be found on VIN in the Student Debt Center. Access Lex is another good resource similar to VIN, but focused more on professional students as a whole. In addition to having a loan repayment calculator and helpful articles and updates from the Hill, they have full-time, fully trained counselors on the phones and available via chat to answer in-depth questions about repayment. They also have a 3-way phone call system where a counselor can stay on the phone with you as you speak with your loan servicer if you should ever need a service like that. Both VIN and Access Lex are completely free resources. The last two listed here are not free, but you may determine the benefits of using these services outweigh the costs. While you can use a tax professional for much more than this, one reason you may want to use one is if you end up pursuing the general loan forgiveness, which falls under a taxable event. Another reason students will use tax professionals in regard to their student loan repayment is if they're considering filing separately to exclude their spouse's income from some of the repayment plans. You'll want to weigh that option with a tax professional who can help you know how this will impact your taxes. Financial planners can also be very helpful with any number of financial issues you may have, but specifically here you'll want to consult one if you plan on refinancing your federal loans under a private lender. Like I said, while I'm not formally trained on loan repayment or able to necessarily advise on specific strategies or which plan is best for you, I do have a general knowledge of loan repayment and the mechanics of it. Please feel free to call or email me anytime to work through some of what you're thinking in regards to loan repayment, and I'd be happy to talk more about it with you. Thank you for listening if you made it all the way through this, and please let me know if you have any questions at all. Testing 1, 2, 3 testing.